Section 52 of the Fables of Pilpay. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Fables of Pilpay, by Anonymous, translated by Abdullah Ibn al-Muqaffa and Joseph Harris. Fable 3. The Elephants and the Rabbits. There happened once, continued the Raven, a most dreadful year of drought in the elephants' country, called the Isles of Rad, or of the Wind, insomuch that, pressed by extreme thirst, and not being able to come at any water, the whole body of the nation at length publicly addressed themselves to their king, beseeching him to apply some remedy to their distress, that they might not perish, or to destroy them all at once, rather than let them endure a life of so much misery. The king, upon this passionate application, commanded diligent search to be made in all places in the neighborhood, or at any reasonable distance, and at length there was discovered a spring of water, to which the ancients had given the name of Cheshmana, or the Fountain of the Moon. Immediately on this most happy discovery, the king came and encamped with his whole army in the parts adjoining to this fountain. But, as misfortune would have it, the coming of the elephants ruined a great number of rabbits that had a warren in the same place, because the elephants, every step they took, trod down their burrows, and killed the poor creatures' young ones. The rabbits, on this public calamity, assembled together, went to their king, and besought him to deliver them from this terrible oppression. "I know very well," answered the king, "that I sit upon the throne only for the welfare and ease of my subjects. But alas, you now ask of me a thing that far surpasses my strength." Upon this, one rabbit, more cunning than the rest, perceiving the king at a loss, yet very much moved with the affliction of his people, stepped before his companions, and addressing himself to the king, "Sir," said he, "your majesty thinks like a just and generous prince. While the care of our tranquillity disturbs your rest, and while you afford us the freedom to give our advice, it makes me bold to impart to your majesty an invention lately come into my head, to drive those terrible destroyers, the elephants, out of this country. Permit me only," continued the rabbit, "that I may go with the character of your ambassador to the king of the elephants, and doubt not but I will send away all these strangers faster than they came. Neither need your majesty to fear that I shall make any improper submissions to them, if any thought of that kind in the least disturbs your majesty's breast. I am willing that your majesty should appoint me a companion, who may at any time return to you, and acquaint you with all that passes in my embassy." "No," replied the king very obligingly, "go alone and prosper. I will have no spies upon thy actions, for I believe thee faithful. Go in the name of heaven, and do what thou shalt deem most convenient. Only take care that you always remember that an ambassador is the king's tongue. His discourses therefore ought to be well weighed, and his words and his behavior noble, and such as would suit the prince himself, whom he represents. The most learned in the kingdom ought always to be made choice of for ambassadors. Nay, I have heard that one of the greatest monarchs in the world was wont frequently to disguise himself and become his own ambassador. Indeed, for the honorable and proper discharge of that employment, 3 necessary qualities are resolution, eloquence, and a vast extent of natural parts. A violent spirit, let me tell you, is not for that employment. Several ambassadors, with a rash word, have created trouble in a peaceful kingdom, and others with a mild and agreeable saying have reunited irreconcilable enemies." "Sir," said the rabbit, "if I am not endowed with these good qualities your majesty has enumerated, I will endeavor at least to make the best of those I have, and shall ever remember this lesson which your majesty has honored me with, and endeavor to act according to what your majesty has so justly declared to be the duty of one in so public and so honorable an employment." Having so said, he took leave of the king, and went immediately forward on his journey to the elephants. Before he ventured himself among them, however, he bethought himself that if he went into the crowd that usually attended on their king, he might very likely be trod to pieces, for which reason he got upon a high tree, from whence he called the king of the elephants, who was not far off, and addressed him in the following words. "I am," said he, "the moon's ambassador. Hear therefore with reverence and attention what I have to say to you in her name. You, who in all ages have been famous for your adorations of my royal mistress, know full well, I doubt not, that the moon is a goddess whose power is unlimited, and that above all things she hates a lie. The king of the elephants, who was a just and a most pious prince, trembled when he heard the rabbit talk of these things, and humbly desired to know the subject of his embassy. The moon, replied the rabbit, has sent me hither to let you understand that whoever is puffed up with his own grandeur and despises her little ones deserves death, and that she is grieved to see that you are not contented only to oppress the little ones, our peaceful and religious nation, but you have the insolence to trouble a fountain consecrated to her deity, where everything is pure. Reform your manners, else you will be severely punished. And if you will not give credit to my words, come and see the moon in her own fountain, and then tremble and retire. The king of the elephants was inwardly grieved and astonished at these words, and went to the fountain, wherein he saw the moon indeed, because the water was clear, and the moon then shone very brightly. Then said the rabbit to the elephant, You see the sacred deity. Take of the water to wash yourself, and pay your adorations. The elephant very obediently took some of the water, but puddled the fountain with his trunk, at which the rabbit, Infidel, said he, you have profaned the fountain with your unhallowed touch, and behold, the goddess has gone away in a passion. Retire, therefore, I conjure you, with speed from hence, with your whole army, lest some dreadful misfortune befall you. This threatening language put the king of the elephants into a trembling, and terrified him to that degree that he presently commanded his army to decamp, and away they all marched, never to return to the sacred fountain of the moon again. And thus the rabbits were delivered from their enemies by the policy of one of their society. I have not recited this example, continued the raven, but to instruct you that you ought to make choice of a prudent and politic bird for your sovereign, since by it you see that art and address, even in the representative of a king only, can do more than force in many cases, though the king himself and his whole army engaged in the enterprise. Choose, therefore, one for your king, who may be able to assist you in your adversities, and not an owl, who has neither courage nor wit. These obscene birds have nothing in them but malice, which will, one time or other, believe me, be no less fatal to you than the cat was to the partridge, who desired him to decide a difference which she had with another bird. The story is this. End of section 52, read by Jennifer Louise in Rochester Hills, Michigan, on April 30th, 2021.